I believe the job of a teacher is crucial in nurturing children who will shape our future. Shouldn't those who take on this role possess a strong sense of purpose and the basic courtesies of being a human being? The thought of someone unfit for teaching in such a position. Am I the only one that finds this frightening? My name is Matilda. I work as a teacher and am currently teaching world history at a middle school on Maui, Hawaii. Maui is about 2,360 miles away from San Francisco. It's usually a remote island with few flights, far removed from the urban image of San Francisco. I had my reasons for wanting to teach on a remote island, and as if by good timing, my husband Royce got transferred to a government office in Maui, which sped up our move here. Royce has a deep interest in regional revitalization and a strong sense of mission, dreaming of boosting tourism on remote islands. While my husband and I work in different fields, administration and education, we share a common desire to uplift areas that might be at a disadvantage compared to urban centers. But putting Royce's story aside for a moment, I became a teacher largely due to my parents' influence. My father, a former middle school principal, was elected to the city's education board for his achievements. My mother, after 25 years as an elementary school teacher, became an education advisor, offering guidance to struggling teachers and parents, earning widespread trust. Growing up watching my parents, I aspired to be like them. Though I never attended their classes, the praises I heard and the words of gratitude from their students and holiday cards showed their caliber as educators. As their daughter, I felt a mix of pride and happiness, and a deep desire to become a teacher like them. To become a teacher, obtaining a teaching license is essential. One must earn a degree from a college or junior college, complete teaching practice, and acquire the necessary credits. With a deep desire to understand education, I entered a national university of education. Lectures by renowned professors and connections with like-minded peers expanded my skills and boosted my motivation. During my college years, I had two significant experiences, or memories involving two people. One good, one bad, but which one should I start with? There was a volunteer education research group in college. This group actively exchanged ideas with other universities and focused on networking with like-minded individuals. At these regular meetings, not only were there social gatherings, but also opportunities to present our views. At one such meeting, I, representing my university, passionately spoke about my studies and my eagerness to excel as a teacher. After my presentation, the room erupted in applause and praise. A moment of great satisfaction and joy for me. It was then that Ruby, a fellow student from another university, approached me. "I felt disgusted by your naive and superficial speech. Can't you talk more realistically? It was a total waste of time." I was taken aback by Ruby's sudden and harsh words at our first meeting. I was merely expressing my aspirations as a teacher. I thought I was being realistic. "What exactly did you find unsatisfactory?" As I responded, Ruby turned red with anger, hurling irrational insults before leaving in self-satisfaction. I had never encountered someone like her before and was left dumbfounded. Then, another student from Ruby's university approached me with an apologetic look. "I'm sorry about my friend. She was irritable for not being selected as a speaker, and seeing your great presentation just set her off." This backstory, though enlightening, made me question how someone so self-centered and verbally abusive could be suited for teaching. In subsequent meetings, I encountered Ruby again. Her disdain for me seemed entrenched, as she continued to mock me and exhibit a sense of superiority, clearly pleased with herself. "You're not cut out to be a teacher. Your naive and weak-minded approach is exactly what I despise. Did you hear my presentation? It encompassed the entire reality and suggested future directions. It was infinitely more meaningful than your trivial talk. I don't want to see your face at these meetings. Why don't you just drop out of university?" These were just some of Ruby's words, but to me, her presentation was meaningless, self-righteous, and violent in its dismissal of opposing views. She mistook the silence after her presentation for awe at her brilliance. Encountering such a person was my biggest regret in attending these meetings. But apart from that, they were an excellent opportunity to broaden my horizons. As you've noticed, this was the unpleasant part of my story. Now, let me share something positive. An unavoidable step for obtaining a teaching qualification is participating in teaching practice. Many aspiring teachers work as tutors in learning centers for experience. I, too, had taught at a tutoring center, but felt a mix of nerves, anxiety, and excitement at the prospects of real school experience. My teaching practice began at a national high school affiliated with my university, allowing me to gain first-hand experience as a teacher. I learned a lot, often feeling overwhelmed, but I was determined not to let any of it slip through my fingers. Teaching practice, though just 3 weeks, led to a deep connection with one of my students. Rachel, a 9th grade student aspiring to be a teacher, often approached me with earnest questions. "Why did you choose to become a teacher, Miss Matilda? I wonder if I'm cut out for teaching. I'm anxious." There are many ways to be involved in education, right? I haven't formed a clear vision yet, so I'm not sure what to do. I took care to thoughtfully respond to Rachel's serious inquiries. Though I was not yet a teacher and lacked life experience, I saw myself in her and wanted to help. Rachel trusted me greatly, and though our time together was short, she considered me a mentor. On my last day, as I was leaving the school, she said, "I'll never forget meeting you, Miss Matilda. I'll work hard and seriously consider my path forward." Her words still resonate with me as if it were yesterday. A cherished memory with my first student. After graduating, I finally obtained my teaching license. Now, all that was left was to pass the recruitment exam to open the path as a teacher, but I had been contemplating deeply understanding education more. During my teaching practice, I saw Rachel struggling with her career path, and it made me wonder how to effectively convey meaningful information to someone like her. I wanted to delve deeper into both practical and theoretical aspects of education. So I decided to pursue graduate studies. In grad school, you set your own research theme and work towards it. I chose factors influencing approaches to personality development as my research topic. Simply put, it's about how to effectively engage with those seeking self-actualization. The research was more complex and challenging than I initially thought, but I found it incredibly fulfilling. I occasionally kept in touch with my first friend Rachel, who had decided to attend my alma mater. As for Ruby, a person I preferred to avoid, I heard from a friend at the meetings that she was hired as a teacher at a public high school in the city. Though I may not like her personally, it's always good to hear about someone you know succeeding. Torn between my eagerness to teach and my desire to learn more about education, I continued my grad school journey. Like in my undergraduate days, there were networking groups, and I joined them to broaden my horizons. The group included professionals interested in education, allowing me to discover worlds unknown to me, making each meeting exciting. It was at one of these meetings that I met Royce, my future husband. Royce, a public servant, was passionate and proud of his work, never sparing effort in his daily tasks. He was a great conversationalist, and our talks often set my heart racing. Eventually, I realized these flutters were signs of affection for Royce, which unsettled me as I had never been in a relationship before. Embarrassingly, I acted awkwardly around him several times due to my unfamiliar feelings. During this time of growing affection, Royce confessed his feelings for me, and we began dating, bringing me immense joy. As our relationship progressed smoothly and my graduate studies advanced, I finally graduated. I passed the teacher recruitment exam, was hired at a local high school, and received a marriage proposal from Royce. It was a time of significant beginnings in both my personal and professional life. Filled with high expectations of standing in front of students and interacting with them, I was ready to embark on my journey as a teacher. But a surprising event shattered these expectations. On my first day at the new school, I encountered someone I had hoped never to meet again, Ruby. By some twist of fate, she was working as a teacher at the same school I was assigned to. After my introduction on the first day, Ruby quickly started her harassment. "I'm surprised someone like you could become a teacher. How many years has it been since you graduated? And now you're just starting as a newbie? How incompetent can you be?" She scoffed. But I chose not to mention my graduate studies. It seems like an unnecessary hassle. When I remained silent, Ruby seemed to take it as a cue to continue her tirade against me. Despite years passing since our university days, her relentless animosity towards me was almost frightening. My subject was world history, and Ruby taught mathematics. Though our interactions were minimal due to our different subjects, Ruby always found a way to interfere. It was particularly burdensome when Ruby joined the committee for a school event. She had no business with my classes, but she would say, "Poor students having to endure your class. Luckily, they have my superior lessons as salvation. My students say they find my classes interesting and easy to understand." On the other hand, I never heard anything positive about Ruby's classes. I tried to ignore her, but that seemed to annoy her even more, making her provocations unbearable. A year of being tossed between my dream teaching life and the nightmare that was Ruby passed, and I was finally approved for my long-desired position at a remote island middle school. I wanted to implement my research theme, educational approaches to environmental differences, in a practical setting. Fortunately, Royce also received an assignment to the same island, allowing us to relocate together. When my transfer was confirmed, Ruby approached me, laughing. "Going to the countryside? Perfect for an incompetent like you. It's like being a fallen warrior." It's for my research and a new challenge. Calling it countryside is disrespectful to the islanders. Unable to ignore her rude remark, I retorted only for her to laugh, and belittle my career choices, claiming it was pathetic. Convinced she was right, there was no reasoning with her. "I'm transferring to a prestigious private high school. They specifically asked for someone as capable as me." Ruby proudly boasted about being hired at a prestigious school. One a banished incompetent, the other an excellent and beautiful female teacher. The contrast couldn't be clearer. Her comments about exile and beauty were so ridiculous that I just nodded and left. The students on the island, still somewhat naive compared to city high schoolers, were pure and sincere. I dedicated myself to my new teaching role. Royce, too, was working hard at his new job, boosting the island's tourism. 3 fulfilling years passed in this nature-rich environment, working and focusing on my research. Then I was invited to present my research findings at a conference in the city. The prospect of returning to the mainland filled me with anticipation, and Royce was able to join me on his vacation. The feeling was like a mini vacation. The conference venue was bustling with education professionals. Royce came to listen to my presentation and his support, and my nervous state was invaluable. When Royce left to greet someone he recognized, I heard a familiar voice from behind. "Why are you here? This is a distinguished educational conference, not a place for a fallen warrior." I hadn't expected to encounter such a noisy woman here. "Are you presenting something? You should probably not, just to avoid embarrassment." Ruby started talking fluently about how she was asked to attend this conference because of her performance at the famous school, even though I hadn't asked. Her condescending tone and manner were extremely irritating. "It's my turn to present next. I'll let you watch so you don't despair over the difference between us." Ruby walked away, seemingly pleased with herself, but I was worried about her. I doubted whether she could make a decent presentation. And, as I suspected, Ruby's presentation turned out to be remarkably insubstantial. It was so lacking. It might be more accurate to say there was nothing there at all. Ruby's presentation lacked substantial data to support her theories, and her speaking skills were poor. Moreover, she spent much time bragging about irrelevant things. More than half of her talk was meaningless. The awkward atmosphere in the hall after her presentation reminded me of our university days. Apparently sensing the mood, Ruby quickly left the stage. During the 30-minute break, Ruby approached me again. Really, my sophisticated speech was probably too complex for ordinary people. "I grace you with my presence, and this is the thanks I get?" She loudly accused me in front of everyone, questioning how I managed to get the final slot in the program. She yelled loudly even though there were many people around her. Royce was beside me, astonished, as I had told him about this peculiar woman. He whispered, "Now I see." Ignoring her, Ruby got more agitated, calling me a low-intelligence teacher with no value. Her loud voice attracted everyone's attention. Then someone spoke up in my defense. "Matilda is a wonderful teacher, very different from a fake like you." It was Rachel, my first student during my teaching practice. We had maintained a close relationship as she attended my alma mater. Rachel, after much contemplation and my advice, decided to support teachers rather than teach herself. She now worked for the Board of Education and was involved in organizing this conference. "Ruby, I've heard quite a lot about you. My job keeps me well informed," Rachel said. Startled at first, Ruby quickly regained her composure and retorted, "Such insolence from a worthless teacher and a young girl. Go away, you're useless." Then an angry voice echoed, "Who are you speaking to like that?" It was the chairman of the City Teachers Union. Ruby turned pale upon realizing who it was. "Matilda's father is the educational director of the Board of Education, and her mother is a highly respected educational critic," the chairman explained. Ruby immediately protested, accusing me of nepotism. "Daughter of the educational director? That's favoritism, so unfair." "Your narrow-mindedness is showing. Matilda's parents are just her background. Her invitation to this conference is due to her own achievements, Dr. Matilda." "Wait, doctor? What do you mean?" Ruby was confused. After completing my master's degree, I faced a dilemma about my career path. Torn between teaching and future research, I chose research. I continued the doctoral program and earned my PhD. Upon graduation, I asked the professors who wanted me to stay at the university if I could gain some practical experience by teaching. I had accumulated significant research on island education, and my long-term thesis was complete. This conference was an opportunity to present my findings. Then Royce, who was listening, said, "That was Ruby, right? We've been noticing a lot of issues with her. Discussions are underway whether to let her continue teaching." "What are you talking about? Who are you?" Ruby murmured in a fading voice, her face turning pale. "Royce is a civil servant. Specifically, a national civil servant with a position in the U.S. Department of Education. He was on assignment to the island as part of a personnel exchange with the Ministry of the Interior, working on a rehabilitation program for problematic teachers. Because of this, he kept receiving updates about such teachers." The chairman's words, "You better be prepared," made Ruby kneel, cover her face, and cry. After my presentation, I received thunderous applause. Ruby had quietly disappeared from the venue. Royce and I had been assigned to the island for 3 years. I was expected to return to the university, and Royce's secondment was ending, so he was returning to the Department of Education. We moved back to the city together just as we had arrived. We invited Rachel to our new home. "I'm always grateful to your father, the education director. My dad also speaks highly of you, Rachel, calling you a capable and reliable staff member. Thanks for your help this time," I added. "I knew about Ruby from you and thought she couldn't possibly be fit for teaching. A little investigation revealed a lot of issues. It wasn't difficult. Ruby's professional attitude was the worst, with no good reputation. She had managed to behave well during her transition to the private school, but her luck ran out, exposing her true capabilities and unsuitability for teaching. Her job at the private school was a 3-year contract, and she forced her way into the conference to try to extend it. Her participation in the conference, let alone her dreadful presentation, was unthinkable. Her plan to extend her contract through the conference ended in a disastrous result. The principal of the prestigious school, upon learning about her presentation and behavior at the conference, promptly terminated her employment. Ruby's misconduct led to her being sent to a rehabilitation program, but she foolishly fled, unable to cope. Ruby's abandonment of her duties has raised serious doubts about her suitability. A hearing for revoking her teaching license has begun. According to him, the revocation of her license was almost certain. Royce returned to his former position, finalizing the rehabilitation program, and was appointed leader of a new project. Rachel was making strides as a leader in reforming the working conditions of educational staff. I returned to the university to teach. Although it's different from teaching at middle and high schools, it's enjoyable and fulfilling, and I'm continuing my research, exploring new methods of education. I dream of my research nurturing the children of the future, making every day rewarding.